Hey, it's Morella Manelli, and today I'm going to show you how to use Kenra Color Creatives to create a custom peachy pink blend, and I'm also going to show you how to create a platinum peekaboo using Diamond Frost and all Kenra color. Now let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, it's really important to understand the level and tone that you're working with as your foundation. So this model already has pretty blonde hair, as you can see. She actually just got her highlights done a few weeks ago, and she's not quite ready to touch up her blonde and just wants to have a little bit of fun in between her appointment. She does want to keep that front section pretty platinum, but as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit on the brassy warm side of the blonde. So I'm just going to isolate those front pieces first, and then I'm going to mix up our formula, which is Kenra Color Creatives Muted Copper equal parts to Honey Coral with a few ribbons of Velvet Wine. So this is going to be my foundation color, and I'm then going to blend that right on in to just Honey Coral. Now, a great way that I like to test out my colors is have a foil there and just brush the color right onto the foil so I have a nice visual. And then for those pieces on the side, I'm going to be using Diamond Frost in Demi Permanent 1:1 with 9 volume developer. Now, it's really important to understand the level that you're working with. As I mentioned, her hair is already pretty blonde, and she just got her highlights done a few weeks ago. Her hair is also a really strong level 9, a solid level 9. So that's really important when using Diamond Frost or really any of the Kenra Color Creatives. If you want the most vibrant or pastel version of the shades that you're using, you're going to want to ensure that your client has a level 9 or even a level 10 for the most vibrancy out of these shades. Keep in mind that if you were to apply these shades onto a darker version of this blonde, the shades are going to come out slightly different. You're going to have that sheer tone or light reflection versus a saturated finish, and that really has to do with the level that you're working with. So for Diamond Frost, I love it because it comes in demi-permanent. It's not going to affect any of her darker hair color that she has going on, like the roots or anything like that, but it's simply going to tone out a lot of this brassy blonde that she's got going on, and it's going to tone it into the perfect white shade. I decided to apply my Diamond Frost in slices in foils, mostly because we're going to be applying Kenra Color Creatives, which is a direct dye, and I wanted to make sure that they are completely isolated and that there's not going to be any overlap of that warm peachy shade that we're going to be applying onto this white platinum hair. Once I'm all done applying the slices throughout the sides with the Diamond Frost, I then get ready to apply my Kenra Color Creative formulas starting in the back. I've basically split her hair into quadrants, so right down the center, which is where she naturally parts her hair, and then from the apex all the way down behind the ear. And I'm basically just applying my darker formula, which is the foundation shade of the Muted Copper and Honey Coral with the Velvet Wine, onto the perimeter of each of the sections, and then just really focusing on applying it all the way down to where the highlights begin, and then dragging it down with a combination of my fingers along with the brush. Now, even though she doesn't have blonde hair all the way to the roots, I am applying it pretty close to the scalp area and then dragging it down. So this is going to be the perfect example of how the tone of the Kenra Color Creatives is actually going to change depending on the level that we're working with. What you'll find is that the vibrancy of this formula that I put together is going to be a lot more vibrant towards the mids and those ends, which is exactly where all of her blonde highlights live. One of my best practices or tips when applying direct dyes is to make sure you're really working it in and almost oversaturating when applying any type of direct dye. That's because what you see is what you get when applying these types of colors. So it's imperative that we're not doing so much surface painting as we are saturation painting. So once you've painted on, I like to comb it through and then really work my hands and push the color into the hair. One of the things that I love about Kenra Color Creatives is that they can really be a wearable shade. So they do have sandy beige, and the honey coral is really beautiful as a warm blonde shade. So definitely play around with these tones, but what I'm really creating here is just more of that blushy pinky shade and blending it right into that honey coral, which you'll see can be a very wearable shade, and they wash out so beautifully after about 40 washes. So when I'm doing these types of tones on my clients, I like to explain to them that as they start to wash their hair, just enjoy the different shades as it starts to fade out, because it kind of tells a really beautiful color story. It's not going to look as vibrant as when you first got it done and applied, but it's going to wash out into a really nice canvas that you can really apply more creative shades again and again after each visit. Now, something I want to point out with this section in particular, and you may have noticed as I've been applying this color, is that I'm actually taking half V sections down. So what that means is I'm applying the color right onto that blonde line of demarcation, combing it through, but I'm more focused on the saturation of the color towards the interior and leaving the exterior blonde pieces out, because that's where I'm going to blend that honey coral. So this isn't just like a typical color application. You can really have fun with the placement of each of the sections when you're applying. Now for the front, I am taking diagonal forward sections, and this is just so that way the hair lives comfortably towards the back. And then another thing I want to note is that I haven't applied the honey coral just yet to the ends, and this is because I want to allow for more time of processing and saturation of this base formula that I created. And the honey coral, I'm just looking for more of a sheer tone to it. I just want it to kind of blush it out with the honey coral. So my processing time is actually going to start as soon as I'm done with my application of this foundation shade. I do one more careful look over to make sure I have all of my color applied where necessary, especially in the front, because she does have the blonde up a little higher. And now I start the timer for 20 minutes. And this is where I start to work in that honey coral on the ends, but working from the bottom up. So in the same direction that I started with the initial application. Keep in mind that this is a direct dye. So even though it has been applied for a little while here in the back, if you were to lay this honey coral, which is a much more sheer shade, over this darker foundation shade that I just created, it still can blush it out. So this is where I really start to work it in and push it in with my hands, further blending in those two colors together. Your subsections also matter, which is why I took a lot of diagonals throughout this entire application. This is going to force you to have a higher application when you start to put your end formula on, which is what I was talking about earlier with the exterior of each of these sections being slightly brighter with the interior being a little bit darker. So you can see I'm pushing up that honey coral, and because of the way my sections are laying, you're going to get a really beautiful dimensional and blended effect. All of these application methods that I'm sharing in this video can also be used on Demi Permanent as well. So basically, don't be afraid to have internal V sections or placement where maybe the lighter shades are a little bit higher and your darker shades are a little bit more into the interior of your application, really kind of giving more dimension to your highlight application, which is typically how you would apply any Demi Permanent or creative shade. Once you're done with your application, you should have about 5 to 10 minutes left on the timer. Just keep in mind that if you want the maximum saturation of Kenra Color Creatives, you're going to want to process it for the full 20 minutes minimum. You can always leave it on longer. It's not going to hurt the hair whatsoever because this is a non-oxidative dye. But the less time that you leave it on, the more sheer deposit you're going to get out of this color line. But that is the beauty of Kenra Color Creatives, is that it allows you that creative freedom to really create these really sheer, beautiful blushy tones or max saturated, vibrant finishes. Once she's done processing, I rinse her with cool water and shampoo her with Kenra Platinum Prime Shampoo and Conditioner, and finish off her style with Kenra Platinum Blow Dry Spray, which has argan oil and evaporative silicones to help speed up the dry time, as well as thermal protection. And I layer in the Perfect Blowout, which is going to give me a velvety finish when doing any type of round brushing. And once I'm done with the blow dry, I finish her off with some Marcel curls using a 1 1/4 inch iron. Then for some added texture, I use dry texture spray and then brush out her curls using my Fermar brush. And then finally, to set her style in place, I'm using my all-time favorite finishing spray, which is Volume Spray 25. I absolutely love this spray because where you set the hair is exactly where it's going to stay, and you don't have to worry if you sprayed something in place and you hate it. It's totally brushable and flake free, so you can spray it over and over again. And here's the final result of my custom colored peachy pink tone with some platinum peekaboo highlights. Just to give you a little recap, I started off by applying Diamond Frost at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer in Demi Permanent right onto her hairline where she already had previously highlighted level 9 hair, and put those in a few foils. And then while that was processing, I mixed up Kenra Color Creatives Muted Copper equal parts to Honey Coral with a few ribbons of Velvet Wine, and applied that on her roots to mids, and then blended out into her ends with just Honey Coral and processed her for 20 minutes. I finished off her style with my favorite Volume Spray 25 and a 1 1/4 inch barrel iron. So I really hope you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and check out my other hair tutorials right here on this channel, and I will see you next time.